Hello， 欢迎来到异想直播间。本场直播的主题是 BioChina 2026国际论坛印度市场。Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar hosted by BioChina. Today's webinar topic is India market.
Good afternoon, everyone. Warmly welcome to this year's Indian session. Okay, let's take the seat quickly. Our China and Indian panel will start soon. So in this year, it's fantastic to see so many new faces and familiar ones. So I'm Tong Ling. You can call me Ling, it's okay. So I'm the BD head of Biopharma. It's my great honor to host today's Indian panel discussion. Our theme is BD collaboration between China and India. So as I remember that at last year's Bio Convention, for the first time we invited Indian companies. And for the first time, we hold the China and the Indian closed-door meeting at last year's BioChina convention, yes. And as I remember that it was truly insightful conversation there. And so this year, we gathered here again for the second edition. And we will have a more focused panel to continue exploring how to deepen BD collaborations and hope we can unlock more value for both sides. Okay, so today we are honored to have three distinguished guests with us. All of them come from leading Indian pharmaceutical company. They will bring us rich experience. They have rich experience and profound insight to the pharmaceutical industry. And let's warmly welcome them one by one. Okay, let me introduce the first guest, Mr. Mayur. Okay, come here. Okay. Dr. Mayur is head of BD and innovation licensing from Dr. Reddy Laboratories. He leads global business development focusing on biologics and also novel assets. He has extensive experience in cross-border licensing deals, especially partnering with Chinese biotechs and local farmers. As Dr. Reddy recently was shifting towards innovation. So Dr. Mayur always plays a key role in identifying new opportunities. Welcome, Dr. Mayur. Okay, so take your seat, please. Okay, let me introduce our next guest. He is Mr. Moyosh. Okay, welcome. Mr. Moyosh, he is Senior General Manager of BD and Licensing from Pharma. Mr. Moyosh has over 20 years of experience in pharmaceutical industry. Since joining Pharma in 2010, he has played a key role in alliance collaborations and also portfolio expansion. With deep expertise in BD and merge and acquisition, he is the right person to help us understand what works best in China and the Indian partnerships. Welcome, and take your seat. Okay, our next but not least the guest is Mr. Anirudh. Thank you. Mr. Anirudh, he is Senior Director of Head of Strategy and also Licensing and Merge and Acquisition for Europe and emerging markets at Simpla. He is part of Simpla's leadership group. He has held diverse roles across commercial operation, strategy, and also merge and acquisition. Interestingly, Mr. Annie previously helped Simpla to set up the Simpla's presence in China. So I think he will bring us a unique perspective today for us. Welcome, Mr. Annie. Take your seat, please. So thank you all for being here. Before we start our panel, before we start our topics, I'd like to invite each of you to briefly introduce yourself, better focusing on your career, professional career experience, and company's core strengths, and also company's BD strategies. So, Dr. Muir, let's start from you, okay?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ling. You've already introduced us a lot. My name is Dr. Mayur Sangvi. I head the innovation licensing, biologics licensing for Dr. Reddy's for all our branded markets. Been with DRL, for more than 5 years now, and before, like more than a decade with Sun and Glenmark, focusing on the innovation licensing throughout my career. I think at Dr. Reddy's, we definitely see China is the biggest innovation engine today. And China, we have been in China for the last 20 years, 20 plus years. We have around close to 1,000 people in China, already a team, manufacturing sites. But we are one of the early, kind of tappers of the innovation from China. Closed couple of deals with multiple companies in China on innovation side, on biosimilar side, on the complex generic side. But last 5 years, it has been a very active engagement with all the Chinese biotechs, small, mid-sized, large biotechs, and investing heavily in licensing innovation from China. And we continue to look forward to do that. I think we have seen China growing from a generic API industry to an innovation engine, and we definitely see this as one of our top priority markets to license, to co-develop, and to collaborate even in China and outside China. It's a pleasure to connect today.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your detailed introduction. Okay, so next, Dr. Manoj, could you also share on behalf of Sun Pharma's perspective?
So, good evening, all. This is Manoj here from Sun Pharma. So, Mayur and myself, we are old timers, like old colleagues, but he has moved on now, joined Dr. Reddy's. I'm with Sun for last 15 years. So, essentially, both of them take care of the emerging markets, I believe, and I take care of India operations for Sun Pharma. So, all licensing deals, what we do for India operations, that I take care. So as Mayur rightly mentioned, China in recent year has done really well, especially for biopharmaceuticals, ADCs, biospecifics, and we are certainly looking for that particular area. And in addition to that, we are always open even for small molecules. As probably you know, back home in India, Sun Pharma has good presence across therapy. So we are always open to look for good opportunity across the areas, not only biopharmaceutical, but even the small molecules as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So next, Dr. Annie, please share on behalf of Simpla.
Thank you. So Cipla is, one of the largest Indian pharmaceutical companies. Within the domestic India market, we are amongst the top three. And, we have been in international markets for multiple years. We are recognized largely for our presence in the respiratory segment. And, we are very humbly proud to make a lot of innovations in that space. In my role in the last 13 years with Cipla has changed. I started with the India business, and then I had some stint in the corporate. I was also responsible, for the China business to set up our presence here. But in my current role, I am, responsible for business development, for licensing, for the overall commercial strategy, as well as mergers and acquisitions for Europe and emerging markets. So the way we define emerging markets, it encompasses Australia, China, the whole of Asia, but excluding India, Middle East, Latin America, South America, Central America, and Europe. So that's my current responsibility, and I'm very glad to be, representing both Cipla and my country, India, here to discuss more about how we can strengthen our relationships between two absolutely, major pharma powerhouses between China and then India. So thank you. Very glad to be here.
Thank you all for your detailed introduction. And now we have a clear picture of your experience, company's core strengths, presence in which territories, and also the BD strategies. This will help us to have an in-depth and targeted discussion today. Okay. We all know that the pharmaceutical industry has come to at a interesting turning point right now. We know that Chinese companies are developing world-class innovative drugs and looking for an efficient way to go globally. Meanwhile, for Indian companies, have boosted global commercialization channels and deepened experience in international market access, and strong and has built strong strengths in both generics and also biosimilars. Currently, the question is no longer if we should collaborate, but how we can do collaborations more effectively. So in our today's panel discussion, we will have three key topics. Yeah, we believe that our guest's insight will help sketch out an practical roadmap for our future. So the first topic, so let's begin with our first topic. The first topic is global expansion. Benchmarking internationalization paths of Chinese and Indian pharmaceutical enterprises and gain insights. So my question comes here, okay? So based on your experience at Dr. Reddy, Sun Pharma, and Simpla, for Indian companies entering SRA markets, like the US and European countries, versus their emerging markets, what are the key successful factors for each? Okay, and I think that our guest, you can take the regulatory approval, commercial layout, and marketing exercise, for example, and let me know that what Chinese companies could learn from India's playbook. Okay, so again, let's start from Dr. Munir.
So I think at Dr. Reddy's, how we see, entering into emerging market versus the SRA market is very different. I think our primary objective is to reach maximum patients, create maximum impact, right? More than 50% of the global population, stays in emerging markets. Uh, it takes an average 4 to 7 years of delay of any innovative drug to reach to emerging markets, right? When it gets approved in an SRA country, you will see a significant delay, in reaching because of the priorities of the multinationals in focusing on US, Europe to start with, which is again very, very natural and logical also for them. But we see this as a great area where Chinese companies can tap in, right? The unmet need is high. The market, the availability of drugs is limited. The patient population is large. Of course, there are complexities because it's not one market; it's a group of market, right? Beyond US, Europe, the guidelines may not be very, very clear to you as they are very clear sometimes in US, Europe. But learning from what Indian companies did is, beyond US, Europe, they expanded their footprint in all the emerging markets. And I'm sure, Sun, Cipla, all of them we are all of them in the same, train. We have presence in more than 40 to 50 markets in emerging market space. We have our field forces, our front ends, our own subsidiaries, taking care of these markets, and a very deep understanding of the regulatory part, clinical part, commercial part of these markets. Uh, China has grown from generic to me too, to me better, to me first now, right? China is coming to almost like all first in class, best in class drugs have started coming from China. But still, there is a big chunk of me too, me better drugs available in China, which can still serve emerging market very, very effectively because the innovation is still not reached emerging market, and it will be a welcome move if you have a global quality data with an option to enter into emerging markets first or in parallel to your US Europe efforts. Beyond that, what I'll say is the emerging market beyond population and the reach. I think the more important is they're evolving. So the insurance coverage is getting better and better every day. The pricing is getting better and better every day. So they are no more a small market. Overall emerging market is around, and then as Anirudh said, if I add China also into it, it's around $450 billion opportunity, right? It's a huge opportunity, but remains untapped because the focus largely goes to US, Europe. So, my only kind of few suggestions here will be don't discount the whole ex-US Europe region. It's a very valuable region if you plan your regulatory strategy in advance. If you start interacting with some of the companies who are very strongly playing a role here, you have an opportunity to get a very early revenue even before US Europe with a limited investment. That's the most important thing. And for Dr. Reddy's, we would like to walk before we run. So we are running right now, walking in emerging markets. One day we'll run in US as well.
Okay, so interesting answer. So, Dr.
Yeah.
Manoj.
Right. So just to take clue from what Mayur mentioned, just to take that ahead, uh, probably the aspect what I believe that need to be focused more between China and India is co-development. Essentially, essentially instead of concentrating an asset which is say in a late stage or in the registration stage, can we start evaluating the assets in early stage of its development? Probably that may not be happening at this moment. So it's like uh, a traditional licensing model. Can we shift from traditional licensing model, say, towards co-development? I believe that could be a key here. In terms of Sun Pharma's experience, say in emerging markets, I would say it's like in two, threefold. We although started as a generic company way back almost 40 years back, but we have successfully transformed ourselves into a specialty player. Now having a very good pipeline, a good innovative assets being rolled out globally. It happened because of two, three factors. One, certainly acquisition. So we acquired Ranbaxy that gave us a very good footprint, not only in India, but also helped strengthen our presence in emerging markets. And the major second shift happened when we introduced our innovative asset, Illumia or Tildrakizumab, which is IL-23 asset. Now this IL-23 asset, Illumia, is again ideal example of co-development, what I was talking about. We entered into collaboration with Merck for Tildrakizumab 10 years back when it was in phase 1 and a phase 2. So we collaborated with Merck right through the phase 3, the registration, and now the asset is being rolled out globally. I'm proud to mention that probably this is the first asset from Indian pharmaceutical company to touch mark of $1 billion. So it's now touching $1 billion mark. So that made a very good shift from a traditional licensing to co-development. And now the third shift coming for us in emerging markets and even the established market is introduction of our own innovative assets. So now that's the third shift that we are experiencing. So that would be my answer.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. And Mr. Annie, what insights do you have?
No, I think your question was very pertinent on how we can, stop just looking at US, Europe, and also cater to the larger emerging markets. The shift which I have seen in the last 10 years is that historically most companies, especially, focusing on Indian and Chinese companies, we were starting with US in our mind, be it in terms of development, portfolio identification, and also commercial. And then the second leg used to be the EMs. But in the recent past, what I have, so not just in my organization, but also with my peer group, is that we have started acknowledging requirements of each market separately. So I'm not saying we should stop focusing on US, but in parallel, we can evaluate all your important regions, look at what the country needs, what the patient needs, and then start those development in parallel, right? Earlier, it used to be sequential, right? And we used to leverage on what was developed, and then look at a pathway to take it to EM, and therefore there was a 4, 5, or even a 10-year lag. But very recently, in the last 4, 5 years, I've seen that shift happening, and more companies are started to do harmonized developments, as we call it. So, which you take a category or a platform or a product segment, and you develop it across the board, and that is helping us get to all the markets at a relatively faster pace. I'm not saying we are getting everywhere in the first phase or the first month where we want to be, but it is much better than where we started. So that is the first difference I have seen with both Indian and Chinese companies in the last few years. The second is that the healthcare models itself are very different, be it in US or in multiple countries in it. If you take Europe, each country will have a very different model within Europe, right? So historically, it was one lens to look at a category, but in the recent past, uh, companies have started appreciating the nuances, the differences, and started changing their own pathway based on the healthcare model of that country. And we are picking up niches like Manoj was talking about certain specialty assets which Sun has looked at. For supply, it is more on the respiratory side where we see how can we have the entire portfolio, not just in US, but across the board. We have an antiretroviral portfolio. We are developing an oncology portfolio. So it is more market specific address that companies should do and are doing, which is moving the needle and getting us more faster into the EMs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for your on-the-ground answers. And now we think that we have got a clear message that Indian companies succeed in global markets is not only because of the scale, but also because of the market insights and the regulatory experience, and also the ability to partner local, to build a trusted local partnership, and also how to specify the different markets. Yes, and so I think that for what we could learn for Chinese farmers or biotechs, I think that for some Chinese company who are looking for to go global on with our own resource, that this will be a very valued license indeed. But for other Chinese companies who are looking for to go globally through partnership, then the real question is, how do we actually play together? Yeah. So this brings us our second topic is cooperation-driven partnership. So uh, uh, the model and the model of Chinese innovation meets Indian global commercialization. Yeah. So for the second topic, my question is like this. We could, looking ahead over the next 3 to 5 years, and what are the most promising areas for China and Indian pharmaceutical BD's collaboration? And from your own company's perspective, and also so among different product type, including the innovative ISIs, generics, biosimilars, and also different modalities like ADC, monoclonal antibody, bispecific antibody, or small molecule, or there are also many kinds of new modalities currently. And also different and enormous therapeutic areas, and also R&D stages. So from those different areas, which one do you think hold a greater collaboration opportunity? Also, let's start from Dr. Major.
I think, see, there are a couple of areas which I feel for the next 4 or 5 years or even more hold a very strong potential. And again, there are a couple of segments, I'll say. One is innovation, where we clearly see a great scope for collaboration between Indian companies, Chinese companies in terms of, as Manoj highlighted on the co-development piece, right? There is an opportunity for you when the asset is in phase 2 at your, in China, when you're planning to start your phase 3. Largely what we see sometimes as a challenge is the phase 3s are always focused on pure China patients, while you have a good opportunity to, kind of collaborate with Indian companies to add few patients from India, possibly few patients from select emerging markets, which will give you, an opportunity to register your product not only in India, but also in a couple of emerging markets in addition to China at the same time. Local data generation, and this is not going to increase your cost of clinical studies insanely, like the way it will increase if you add US or Europe patients versus a China and emerging market study or a China-India study. The cost, in fact, can be pretty much controlled if it is well balanced within India patient population inclusion. It can be even controlled lower, not higher, right? So, but that strategy need to come at the right place, at the right time, not at the stage where your China recruitment is over and then you are trying to, go, and partner it. I think it needs to be decided much early. We see a lot of encouragement now from Asia. Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia have recently changed their regulatory guidances, highlighting no more US, Europe approval required as a part of filing. That again gives you a very exciting opportunity to add few patients from Asia, right, beyond, India, and, file the drug product along with China in these markets, especially when you are third or fourth in the race, or lower, and you see that the MNCs in US, Europe have limited interest on your asset because the market is already crowded there, but you see a very good opportunity in EM where the market is still not crowded. Co-creation of value is a very good opportunity we should tap in. This will also reduce some of your funding pressures because the partner who is going to help you to get patients from India will take care of the cost of those patients also. So this is not going to increase your cost, but to help you to optimize your costs and get the approvals in many markets. I think in the innovation, you have biologics is the biggest challenge. Small molecule is still India has great capabilities. On the biologic side, we see a lot of gap still in terms of the capabilities of China versus India, if I particularly focus on. So I think ADCs, bispecifics, bioparatopic, ADCs, what in that space now you're looking at, you're going beyond that, you're going more targeted like Claudin 18.2, you're going PD-1 VEGFs, you're going HER2s, TROP2, and there are so many targets such where the target tumor population is large, right? And I'm not requesting you to focus on a very small tumor type where the patient population in India is also very, very small. try to focus on larger tumor types, going India plus emerging market studies. It will help you to move faster. On biosimilar side, I think India is booming slowly. I think there it is still not there as compared to what China's local capabilities are. I seen the commercial manufacturing scale of China. It is going to be insane in terms of size and capacity, and you have built it for future. But the problem is still understanding on the clinical regulatory side is still limited in China on the biosimilar side, while Indian companies have championed some of those areas. So collaborating with them, even on a biosimilar side, with your scale and manufacturing advantage and their regulatory and commercial infrastructure, you can go US, Europe even together. I think in the complex generics, both countries are quite self-sufficient at this point. But I still believe if you're competing for the same molecule in US, if both of you are trying to erode the market price in US by competing for the same molecule, you still have an option to co-develop, co-create in that space, especially on the complex injectable peptide side. So think about reducing the competition and building Asia more stronger player than competing each other in the market. That makes more sense, I think.
Okay.
So what I believe probably from say Indian company perspective, what I see for emerging market, uh, getting asset to the market or say go to market strategy is not a challenge for Indian companies. The challenge what we see for emerging market and especially the market like India is how soon we can get the product to the market. So many times what we experience that innovators, I mean, it's nothing right or wrong. It's always a priority of the innovator. But many a times the emerging markets and the markets like India are like in second layer. So we are losing a very crucial time into the patent life of the product. That's one of the key challenge what we see. So for next 3 to 5 years, what Ling you asked for next 3 to 5 years, I see a very interesting time ahead. So not only we three, but there are quite a few Indian companies now investing a lot or looking for good opportunity to license their assets from China. So there are various key factors, say like the price point, what Mayur mentioned, say the price, the affordability, drug access, the time to regulatory approval, that's improving a lot in India with a good pace. I'm sure my Indian colleagues must have noticed even in recent times, the policymakers in India, they just like probably a month or 2 months back, they had a special discussion, especially on approval of biopharmaceutical, and that was actually a very pleasant surprise for industry people like us. Now they have proposed that Indian government plan to have a national grid covering almost 1,000+ sites, especially for faster regulatory approval of biopharmaceutical. So things are improving a lot. In terms of the product categories, I would say the small molecule generics is not the area because we are pretty good at that. But yes, large molecules and especially the biosimilars. Now the immunotherapies, next 3 to 5 years, we are going to see quite a few immunotherapies like going off patent. That brings in a big opportunity for both of us. In India, we saw a major wave in terms of immunotherapies in last 3 to 5 years. We saw a big wave that kind of shaken up, that kind of made us realize the kind of the potential of India market. Say like pembrolizumab or nivolumab. Although in terms of global perspective, the value could be less, but the kind of growth these immuno-oncos that could register in India as was tremendous. It's like they were growing at the pace of 50% plus year on years. So this kind of opportunities gives us like next 3 to 5 years, I see a good potential out there. Not in small molecules, say generic, but definitely the large molecule. In terms of therapeutic areas, traditionally I have seen large focus on the onco, but when it comes to the market like India, there are other therapy areas which are equally big, probably growing even at a faster rate, say like cardiometabolic, right? So say like even the gastros or say the respiratory, these are also the very potential big areas to look forward in next 3 to 5 years, I believe.
Thank you. So I think I couldn't agree less with both my co-panelists that the next 3 to 5 years are going to be absolutely action-packed, interesting. For me, it will not be a phase where we are reinventing something new because I believe the collaboration between both Indian, Chinese companies and even global companies is quite robust today, right? So there isn't something which is lacking. But this will only take pace. A few themes which I would like to outlay incremental to what has been already placed. One, I believe that a lot of companies will focus on their strengths. So, as you highlighted, Ms. Tong, that China is very, very robust in their pace of innovation, the speed of innovation, A. And B, the capacities are built at scale, which, can cater not just to the next 5, but maybe 10 or 20 years ahead. So as we see a lot of consolidation globally, right, where the prices are, especially on the generics, are coming down. So while companies might not focus as much, but you cannot exit the category, you cannot ignore. So I believe a lot of companies, both in India and China, should leverage on each other's capabilities, the manufacturing capacities, right, on the generic side, instead of competing with each other as outlaid. And at the same time, see how we can access each other's innovation. So on the biospace, on the peptides, on the small molecules, the pace of innovation with some Chinese companies and a handful Indian companies uh, is at a phenomenal rate. So if we can partner early in the stage and leverage on the strength and take them to the markets where we are present. So Indian companies are very good at the go-to market, or they have excellent commercial capabilities. So if we can source the innovation faster and maximize that asset is one. Second, on the generic side, if you can um, partner and ensure that you are able to match the rate of price drops, because at some point it will be unviable for an individual company, but if you partner, then those capacities at scale will really help us. So I think those collaborations are heading in the right space, and this is also coupled backed with a lot of government backing from both sides. The regulatory understanding is far better from both parties. So I think we are heading in the right direction at the right pace. And forums like these only accelerate the speed at which both nations are progressing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for your insightful answers. And we could see that now Chinese innovations has catching global attention, and also Indian companies is very open for Chinese innovation, and also biosimilars. Yes. So we know that from cross-border partnership, we indeed will embrace more broader market. So next, let's bring us to the last topic, the final topic, barriers and future models. The challenges we need to overcome, and the new ways we can partner beyond traditional licensing. Here we have two questions. So question number one, yeah, based on your past experiences, what are the main challenges holding back the deepening of China, of the BD collaborations between Chinese and Indian pharmaceutical companies? Let me take some examples for you, such as the differences in policy compliance, or challenges in cross-border collaborations. So let's go ahead with this question first. Okay, please.
So I think few challenges, but I see, China is also, gearing up and improving every day in terms of, their plans. But what I personally see when I interact with multiple Chinese innovators or even biosimilar or generic companies is that on the innovation side, we still see the limited IP coverage of Chinese innovation in many emerging markets, including India. A really good asset, but the IP is not filed. right? And then you're allowing that asset to go generic in some of the emerging markets. And because of that reason, you're not able to kind of commercialize. Neither any of the company will be able to put in a heavy upfront or do a clinical trial, invest into it if there's no IP. So I think certainly your IP strategy need to be far better in terms of at least picking up the key markets in every region and filing the IP along with when you're filing in US, Europe. I know it's a cost, but it's worth if the asset is important and if you strongly believe in the asset, it's worth for partnering. You know, patent protected assets will always get higher priority versus assets which have a very short IP, right? Um, Second, I also feel sometimes we see, you know, of course, the plant quality compliance, checks a little different. Of course, the NMPA standards are like the CDE standards are very high, but there I see a good collaboration opportunity to work with Indian companies, use tech transfer opportunities. Don't wait for Russia to come and approve you or Brazil to come and approve you. If your partner has already facility which is already approved by most of the regulatory authorities in India, it's not going to be a problem for you to. It should not be a problem for you to tech transfer or be open to explore that model. Um, I see sometimes a lot of resistance on that side, which I think is becomes a challenge, in terms of. I understand it from a biosimilar perspective because it's not an easy tech transfer to consider, but small molecules should not hesitate at all, even if it is a novel molecule, right? Third, I always feel, in terms of challenges, waiting too long for a global partnership, and sometimes we see the Chinese companies have really good asset. They want to partner globally first, but globally means it is US, Europe is the focus always, and there the market is crowded, right, in that particular space. And then you take an example of HER2 ADC. Market is already super crowded in US. If you try and go and find a new partner now, it will be very tough for you to find a partner at this point. You take PD-1 VEGF also, for example, there are already 5 deals happened from China only, right? So it is very tough now to sixth product to come to US, spend $500 million in trial and take some market share, come at 6, 7 years later. It will be very tough for you to find a partner at this stage at the right value. So in that situation, you need to realize this much early. What is the competition in US, Europe, where the value is high, and try to tap India emerging markets much earlier than and because what you lose is the golden period of IP, as Manoj highlighted. You lose 5, 6 years just because of your waited for US to partner, and that's what you lose IP in these markets, and then our interest goes down because the IP is now limited. Earlier, biologics used to be considered to be a very complex, and that's why IP was less challenging. But now, with the biosimilar speed of development, no one doesn't really, worry about developing a biosimilar nowadays with the simplified guidelines. So, IP in biologics also is very critical. It's not only small molecule; your biosimilars also need to be patented. We also see understanding of IP is not that great at this point, and there is a good opportunity to improve that because method of use patents or formulation patents will never give you the strength in emerging markets. What will give you strength in emerging market is your compound patent. What we see is we have not filed compound, but we have a composition or we have a formulation. I think India is one of the best formulation companies sitting there, so it is very difficult to avoid any generic in that space. So I think compound patent filing, early collaborations, not waiting for US Europe partnerships too much, and opportunity to find working together at early stage. If you try to solve some of these things early, try to think about it early, it will be much better. And be open for tech transfer because compliances are important, right? We see some newer models like new cores, or having SPVs and all. Those are also welcome, but they take time, right? So, I think it's important is what is faster speed to the market also is highlighted. It's very, very critical in these markets.
Okay, hope that most of Chinese pharmaceuticals and biotech could take your advice. Okay, so Dr. Manoj, please share your experience and give some examples.
All right. So IP part, very key point, Mayur shared his view in detail. In addition to that, other three, four probably key challenges what I would mention going by past experiences, like one is the market dynamics. So we completely respect. So both partners will always have their expectation from the deal, right? However, we also need to think from a market perspective. If you are talking, say, for 4, 5, 6 market at a time, every market has its own need, its own parameters. So we need to have probably have that flexibility. For example, let's say a point as basic as a pricing. You cannot have same yardstick to be applied for all the markets, right? So we need to have that flexibility in terms of how we are evaluating the market. Second challenge, what we generally experience is from the policy parameters. Now every market has got its own policy to be followed. For example, again India. So some of the emerging markets, they accept the data, say you have the data generated, say in Europe, US, they accept the data. However, some of the markets like India, they insist for generating their own data. So many times these parameters are given a backseat when we are evaluating the asset. And third challenge, what we generally experience is at the enterprise level. Again, that what I mentioned in the earlier question, nothing right or wrong about it, but many times what we experience is that there is a priority of the countries set by the innovator. And in that priority, many times emerging markets and the markets like India come right at the bottom. So that also gives a big challenge. And these are the three, four challenges what we mentioned. And as I mentioned in the earlier question, especially from say whether it's a large molecule or small molecule, we need to now evolve from a traditional licensing model. We need to think on a tech transfer, co-development. Can we come up with the innovative model? So and very much Indian partners, we have set examples of all these which we have successfully delivered. So I think those models can also be replicated for Chinese innovations as well.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Very reasonable. So, Mr. Annie, how do you usually navigate these barriers in your practice?
So we attempt to navigate some of them. I'm not saying we're very successful so far, but one of the ways is to have a more strategic collaboration and not a traditional or a transactional collaboration where you look for an asset, you find it somewhere, and then you just partner for a one product or a one market or a set of markets. But if you take a few steps back and you have a trust-based strategic collaboration with another company, be it in China or elsewhere, then both parties have an equal interest in the whole journey, right, from identifying an asset, developing, be it clinical, and then so that is one way which I feel in which some of these can be mitigated. The second way, the second suggestion, I'm not saying we are doing it now, but another proposal is where you can form some special purpose vehicles, right? So both the companies come together, they carve out and have another entity in which they can, park their technology, park their assets, and so that it's at arm's length from both companies, but then eventually, beneficial for all the parties involved, which today is not happening, right? So it is collaboration between party A and party B. But if you have a third pathway, which is neutral, right, sitting outside of India and China, where you can park in your ideas, you can initiate co-development, but in a third vehicle, which I feel will be more swifter, because then you are neutralizing the India limitations, the China limitations, and only acting on advantages of both the companies. So that's my thought, that's my suggestion, and if that happens, then we can see a far deeper and a far strategic collaboration versus a traditional licensing or a CDMO model that we are currently experiencing.
Sure. Great suggestions for us. So the the number two questions for the third topic is like this. We are seeing a new wave of Chinese innovator farm going global, along with many new collaborations models. For example, let me give you some example. Number one, like the deep tech platform collaborations, such as the Innovent deal, have seven eye size deal with Eli Lilly. And number two, as I remember, there are some co-development and co-commercialization. For example, like Innovent partnership with Takita. Yeah, it's very notable in last year. And number three, there are also many new cons. And number four, there are some strategic R&D partnership. So such as the how to say CSPC's collaboration with AstraZeneca. So my question is like this. Looking forward, beyond traditional licensing, such as the equity investment, joint ventures, and co-development, what new collaboration models will merge also in the partnership between Chinese and Indian companies? And which collaboration partnership model are are you open to exploring? Yeah. Please.
Yeah, I think some of it you have already highlighted, and Anirudh also highlighted on the SPV part. But I think, see, one is the traditional licensing which you're doing, which is continue to be, it's going to continue. So I think if you have multiple products which you see of common interest to both the partners, that means you have a set of, say, 5 biosimilars, and a company in India is also interested in set of all those 5 biosimilars. You have option to think about creating a new co in case you are you want to avoid some of the geopolitical barriers and set it up somewhere else. You have an option to look at JVs. You have an option to look at forming SPVs, as you highlighted. So, but there, I'll not suggest it to go with like for a one asset. It should be kind of a platform or a multi-asset kind of collaboration, which is more strategic, long term, and not an asset basis, only one single asset basis collaboration. We also see co-funding your trials in China, even at early stage. If you have an asset which is really good early stage asset, you have limitations on your fundings, and taking your asset from a preclinical to phase one or a phase one to phase two, POC is much faster and cheaper in China, but you still lack that funding. You have an option to get your partner to co-fund you, and then you both of you strong can enjoy the sub-licensing benefits globally of that asset. So you can even invite some funding not only through raising funds to investors, but you can also think about partnering with pharma companies to get some funds to kind of collaborate. And that's what we have seen it. What is Pfizer doing, or what Astra doing, or what even Takeda is doing, is they're trying to give some funds and get rights for 10 to 11 assets, take them to POC, and then they'll decide what to they do. They're trying to externalizing their R&D to China, looking at the speed of China, looking at the depth of scientific understanding of China now. I think, but that can be done only at a larger scale when it comes to partnerships like what you have given examples. If you want to do single asset or a one or two asset collaboration, you should think about some, kind of co-funding, co-working kind of collaboration mechanisms, and never ignore, recruiting from some of the other markets beyond China. Always think from day one that how you can add more patients, how you can give more your drug more exposure. We see a lot of Australia getting added to China because of the Australia clinical trial policies, but I think there are countries beyond Australia to add for sure. Um,
You're talking about recruiting patients. I thought you were suggesting recruit more Indians in Chinese companies.
no, I think it's all about patient, because I see we have done a phase one in Australia and China,
And I was just
but that's
joking.
it. No, but that I always see that if you have added few Indian patients earlier, we would have by that time we would have received approval. So, um, But yeah, but I think I'll give you one example. Tislelizumab got recently approved in India for NSCLC. In the phase 3 study, they included 14 patients from India, 1-4. And in one of the phase 3, they had 14 patients, and basis that they got approval in India. So it is not necessary that you need to have 200 patient or 100 patient. Even a 10, 15 patient, 20 patient addition can give you an approval in some of these markets if the unmet need is high for that market. So you need to be, you don't worry about recruiting too many patients. So, I think about, and this model is very simple. I am partnering with an Indian company, requesting them to add 15, 20, 30 patients to India from my study. It's a very small funds required even for that Indian company. Later, Indian company gets an option to kind of, get India rights, and you get an option to, earn more. So it's a simple model, but you're avoiding it thinking about complexity. However, Indian companies can help you to avoid those complexity. They can manage that their regulatory. You don't have to come and meet the regulators in India.
And Indian companies, I believe all of us are always like ready to invest, say in the regulatory development, right? So we are always open for that. Essentially, the key message from the discussion probably is like it's a need of hour to move from the traditional business model. So whether it's a co-development or it's a tech transfer, we discussed in earlier questions as well. Those are the various business model what we can adopt. So there are quite a few examples for all of us wherein we have implemented that models. Even a model like a patent licensing, wherein probably innovator may not have the bandwidth, the resources available, we can even adopt the patent licensing model. So for example, in say tech transfer models, I will just quote example. I'll give example of our own collaboration that we have done with Korean company Devong. So now we are, it's an innovative asset, it's a patented asset. Now we are manufacturing our own in India. We also registered, we took care of the regulatory aspect, and we have launched the asset last year. We're doing fairly well. So this co-development, tech transfer, involvement to say early stage, whether it is a regulatory or product development, these are the few key aspects I think we need to work upon.
I would, I strongly believe that, we should have a more strategic early stage collaboration. And as some of us have already highlighted, we should not limit this because of, funding challenges. So you can always look at a third, of financing, which can help accelerate, development, accelerate innovation, and as Mayur highlighted, have multi-center parallel clinical trials so that you can take the product not just for SRA and also take it to EMs. The second I feel is a lot of products today, or a lot of innovation is done by Chinese companies for China. So most of the products you say they start with a China first approach, and then you will start looking at the next wave. If that is successful, then you think about the next market, which typically is US, but can also be something else. If you can, also think about it in the first wave itself and in parallel to the Chinese development, then I think the collaboration between Indian and Chinese companies, or even global companies and Chinese companies, can be more robust and more early stage. Because most of the times you see, oh, this is a Chinese product itself, and then maybe I partner much later when there is readiness for global markets. So I feel that will solve and strengthen cooperation between both companies. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the three panelists' wonderful sharing and in-depth insights. So your valuable experience and professional perspective have given us a clear understanding of opportunities, challenging, and the future direction of the BD collaboration between Chinese and Indian pharmaceuticals. So because time always flies very fast. So yeah, we only have 1 hour. So once again, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to our three distinguished guests. Um, and I also want to thank you for all the audience to join our Indian and China panel discussion. I believe that through today's discussion, we have laid a better foundation for deeper BD collaborations between Chinese and Indian pharmaceutical enterprises. So let's look forward to more in-depth collaboration and brilliant achievement between our two countries in the pharmaceutical field in the future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you, Ling.
thank you, Miss
you.
Ling. You've been a fantastic moderator. Thanks for
Yeah.
moderating the session. And, it was really wonderful to interact with you. Thanks to both
Thanks,
Mayur
Anil.
and Manoj. And
Thanks,
thanks to the audience for patient listening.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Ling.
everyone.
Thank you a lot.
更多内容请持续关注异想线上。See you next time.